the philosopher king, or Aristotle's statesman, they excelled in civic virtue, which is a moral art, not a technical one, which may explain why, even though we are allegedly governed by the best educated, it doesn't seem we've been governed all that well in recent years. So here we have, coming back to where we began, the beginning of an account of how it happened that the values component, the moral dimension of public discourse fell away in virtue of a market faith, a faith in the inevitability of market-driven globalization, a meritocratic faith that sanctified the results and the inequalities that market-driven globalization produced in the name of deservingness. The winners deserve their winnings, and the losers, so-called, must be to blame for their struggles. The market faith, the meritocratic faith, and the faith, the uncritical belief that the answer to inequality rested with individual upward mobility through higher education. Each of these faiths, we could say that the three M's, the market faith, the meritocratic faith, and the faith in mobility as the answer to inequality, proved not only to be false faiths, but they all had the effect of pushing moral argument out of public discourse, of making public discourse technocratic, something for experts, leaving very little room for reasoned, sometimes passionate debate among democratic citizens disagreeing about big questions of justice, equality, and inequality, and the meaning of the good life. One more word in conclusion about the faith in the inevitability of the market-driven version of globalization that gave shape to our present politics. What set the market faith fundamentally at odds with the project of self-government was its evasion of politics, its evasion of the political. And by this I mean the persistent attempt by proponents of market-driven globalization to depict the economic arrangements they brought into being as facts of nature beyond human control. Because according to their logic, all of the policies they insisted upon, free trade agreements, the unfettered flow of capital across national borders, the financialization of economic life, deregulation, recurring financial crises, bailouts, the declining labor share of GDP, the advent of technologies favoring highly skilled workers. These were all features, necessary features of a global economy, not contestable developments open to legitimate political argument. This way of thinking about the economy left little room for public debate about how to distribute goods, or allocate investment, or determine the social value of this or that job. It hollowed out public discourse and fueled a growing sense of disempowerment among citizens. If politics is mainly about adapting to the fixed imperatives of economic life, then it is an activity better suited to experts and technocrats than to democratic citizens. And it was this shrunken conception of politics and of public discourse that led to the moral emptying out of public discourse and the sense of disempowerment that came with it. Banishing morally contested questions from public debate does not leave them undecided. It simply means that economists and technocrats and markets will decide these questions for us. When the neoliberal faith was at high tide, Tony Blair mocked those who wanted to debate globalization. I recall the quote with which I began, when he said, "You might as well debate whether autumn should follow summer." It was smug at the time, but now seems quaint. Climate change has reconfigured the seasons. Summer heat is arriving earlier and staying longer. Some scientists predict that absent changes in the way we live, by the end of the century, summer could last for half the year. What once seemed an unalterable fact of nature has now become a subject for self-government. The boundary between the necessary and the possible shifts beneath our feet. The civic aspiration to shape the forces that govern our lives now requires that we debate and collectively decide whether autumn should follow summer. Thank you all very much. Thank you.